So welcome to tonight's amazing program, Spotlight on Leading Professionals / I've never met a woman architect before. I'm Lee Eisen, EVP and CEO of AIA San Diego. We're also joined tonight by AIA Orange County, and collectively the two chapters represent more than 2,000 architects and design professionals throughout Southern California, all the way from the Mexican border up to Long Beach and then to Riverside County and Anza Borrego to the east. So we are pleased to welcome you to tonight's program, highlighting some of the prevalent themes that affect women in architecture and in professional offices more broadly. Tonight, this will include the missing gap of women in leadership positions from architecture school through the principal level, equitable pay, growing in leadership, as well as LGBTQ voices in architecture. Data shows that today, almost half of the students in our schools, in our architectural programs, are women. This number has increased progressively since the 1970s, but women that have become registered and achieve upper management levels, become partners and own architectural firms has not increased at the same rate or in the same proportion as their male counterparts. Currently, about 17% of registered architects are women. So tonight, I'm very fortunately joined by my all-female colleagues, including CEO and architectural fellow Wendy Rogers of LPA. But first, I'd like to take a moment to introduce a couple of them, and then others will be introduced as we move forward. I'd like to introduce my colleague, MJ Carrion, who heads up programs for AIA San Diego. MJ, wave your hand, say hi. And also our newest board member, and a new position for AIA San Diego, who heads up diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. And this is a brand new position for our board. And that is Ms. Jamie Intervallo, who is also at LPA. Jamie has put this program together along with some colleagues. I'd like to introduce her and let her kick off tonight's show. Jamie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Lee. Hi, everyone. As Lee shared, my name is Jamie Intervallo. I'm an architect here at LPA Design Studios and also director of EDI+J for AIA San Diego. And I want to introduce my colleague counterpart, Meghna Joshi.
Hi guys, I'm Meghna Joshi. I'm an architect with Little and director of EDI+J for AIA Orange County. In honor of Women's History Month, we are interviewing Wendy Rogers, CEO of LPA Design Studio.
Wendy embodies the dream of so many young women designers pursuing architecture, including myself. Having broken the glass ceiling as CEO of our firm, her transformative leadership has guided our firm to many achievements, including being one of 16 national firms meeting the 2030 challenge, and now AIA California Firm of the Year.
When Jamie and I decided to launch our CEO series with Wendy, we were lucky to have found the perfect candidate for a dream launch. Our hope is to inspire women in architecture to pursue leadership roles through these conversations. Michele Hottel, author of the influential blog and podcast, I've Never Met a Female Architect Before, was a perfect choice to lead this conversation. Michele and Wendy's association dates back to their college days. Welcome, Michele.
Hi. Wendy Rogers is an architect. She graduated from Cal Poly Pomona in 1988. She started at LPA in 1987, and now she has been the CEO for 4 years at LPA, which is the 2021 AIA California Firm of the Year. Welcome, Wendy.
Thanks, Michele. And honestly, for all of you, it's just really a privilege to be here. I'm happy to share my story, but I think it's just really important what it is we're trying to do to empower and inspire each other. So thank you for inviting me to the conversation, and it's great to be here with you, Michele.
Thanks. In my blog and podcast, I've Never Met a Woman Architect Before, I ask people about their architecture journeys. And most people know mine, but I started a firm 26 years ago after I gave birth to my daughter, and I was licensed, and then continued as a sole proprietor today. These questions were curated by the WIA team, and I feel that everyone's journey is a success story. Let's go on with the first one. Changing lives by design is a very powerful, inspirational design statement that is translated to every project the firm does. LPA is one of 16 firms in the country that is meeting the AIA 2030 challenge and was just named 2021 California Firm of the Year. Congratulations. Can you share with us how this transformative leadership has helped you choose priorities that not only create great design, but also sustainable and equitable design as well?
Well, I will certainly do my best. And I think, so I've been at LPA my entire career, literally since college for 33 years. And when I started at LPA, we were a 40-person firm doing largely commercial work. And in this 33-year time, now today we are a 400-person firm. Now we have 6 offices across both California and Texas, and we do work in 9 market segments. And we're an integrated design firm. So we have 9 different disciplines practicing under one roof. And we did that so that we could, one, be in a more diverse practice to help weather crazy economic moments like COVID and others that our industry is routinely faced with. But I think the other aspect is just we wanted to be a more sustainable firm. And I think back to 2004, where our leadership team decided that we would exceed Title 24 by 25% on all of our projects. And that was just a way of starting a culture that looked at performance and how we could achieve high performance with design excellence. And today we've diversified into the kind of practice that we are, and are really honored to have been recognized as the Firm of the Year, but also I think for the performance of what we're doing as the largest firm in the country to meet the 2030 challenge. It was a huge moment for all of us here, certainly.
It's amazing to hear about your journey of 34 plus years with LPA. It's incredible to stay with the company through personal and professional growth together. Recently, I read a Gallup survey about millennials being the job hopper generation. As people look for workplace engagements that satisfy creative, emotional, and behavioral connections, the disillusion grows and passion drops when they don't see the reflection of their ideas in the company culture. Talent attraction is easier compared to talent retention today when people look for equitable opportunities for growth. And this is what they're saying, right? I don't know personally what this is. How do you create a workplace where everybody's talents are recognized and growth is encouraged at all stages, where everybody is seen and heard?
Yeah. Well, I have to say, starting out in the career, I was just happy to have a job doing something that I love to do. So the fact that I started out, working on projects, like leaning into a lot of our civic work. And then until I was in this position as CEO for over 25 years, led all of the design in our K-12 education studio, right? So super rewarding work, working with really great people. And that's always been, honestly, in a lot of ways, it sounds really corny, I know, but it's been enough. It was just enough to work with these clients and learn from these different people and the different experiences. And, things are more complex. I mean, in the world today, for sure. So it was really interesting as I transitioned into this role and stepped into when we created, and actually I'll even go back for a second. When LPA turned 50 years old, which now was 6 years ago, we really kind of re-envisioned the structure of the firm, the whole organization of the firm. And so that was about looking at how our leadership team could really have a more meaningful role to play, how we could look at our LPA leadership structure in terms of brand, business, and culture, but also what it meant to really have some significant leadership roles in the company. So, what it meant to really have a dedicated person in our operations role, what it meant to, once again, create this new role of Chief Talent Officer. So it was really interesting for me transitioning into this to be like, what does it mean to create a great place to work? What are the things that are important in a firm? I mean, I want to be able to do great work, but when you're talking about 9 different disciplines as well, right? I mean, great work means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And so we truly believe that one, we're going to get a higher performance because everyone here at LPA is wearing the same jersey, right? We share the same set of values. When we start a project, we're all sitting around a table figuring out what the idea is going to be, what aspects of what disciplines are really going to need to be given more presence or more value for the success of that project and what it is our client is needing. So it's been something we've been working for a really long time at, because it's a very different model than a traditional architectural firm where architects have a tendency to really strongly narrate the way that a project moves forward. And recognizing that on some projects, your landscape architect may really have a really strong lead role, or what we found a lot of the time is, when you're looking at the climate and things like that, understanding what needs to happen for the performance, and our mechanical engineers having a strong voice, right? So it really was something we've been working hard at through all of our different LPA universities, and just how we would talk about ourselves and what we really want to expect of each other on our projects, that when we say we value we over me and every voice at the table, that it's the experience of everyone on our team and all of our clients that they're getting that on every project. And so it really is important, because just like with a client, when you're meeting with a large school, it could just be the parent that shows up to that meeting that has this great idea that ends up informing the entire site design. I know that that can happen because it's happened to me for sure. And so when you're sitting in a room, you just never know whose voice is going to have the right great idea and the thing that we all need to be able to listen to. So really showing up and being prepared to listen and give the opportunity for everyone to express their opinion and thought has been just a really strong aspect of who we've evolved into, I think, as a firm.
What are the 7 disciplines at LPA?
Yeah, that's it. So
I mean, also, I know architecture, landscape architecture, structural engineering. What are the other?
Yeah, so
Okay.
So literally almost since I started, we were architecture, landscape architecture joined in 1992, and interiors. In addition to that,
I forgot Chris. Yeah, sorry, yeah. Chris. Yeah.
That's okay. In addition to that, we have all of the engineering disciplines. So civil, which is an excellent partner with our landscape architects and all of us when we're thinking about how we're planning the work, all of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing disciplines, and lighting design. So, which is amazing, right? And so you just have all these different pockets of expertise that I think, like I said, when we all are sharing the same values, allow us to achieve the kind of performance that we're seeing in the work. Plus some really great projects.
Thank you. Recognition as a woman in architecture is a double-edged sword. A lot of successful women do not want gender attribution to their professional roles, but that is as good as saying, I don't see race. For the world to be equitable, people of all genders, colors, and sexual orientation need to be seen and heard. I can count female CEOs on my fingertips, and I bet there are more CEOs named John in Southern California than female CEOs. In your 34-year journey from internship to leadership, how did you navigate gender roles and stereotypes? Was there a moment where you paused and thought, this is happening because you're a woman?
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. That's a really long question.
They're long questions, yeah.
So let's take that maybe in some smaller pieces first. Honestly, for me in this 34-year journey, navigating gender roles and stereotypes, I've never thought about them. And it wasn't my focus. I focused on the work. I found success my entire career through the work. Never once have I had to ask for a promotion, or this is going to sound shocking, but in a lot of ways, I've never even asked really for a raise. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. And even as I do it, but I will tell you what I did is that I raised my hand and asked for opportunities. And I remember the moment precisely because it was 1992, and we had got it was nice. Well, okay, so I don't remember the year. Clearly don't remember the year. But we had just won the headquarters for the CSU to do their headquarter building in Long Beach. And one of the architects came in and said that we'd just been awarded this job. And I was sitting there with one of our other design leaders, and Dan Heinfeld, who is our president, still is our president, amazing. And I literally just said, well, so-and-so's doing this project, so-and-so's doing that project. I want the opportunity to design the headquarters building. And I got it. And I realized the life that, you know, that's kind of an amazing kind of situation. But I raised my hand and I said I wanted that opportunity. And I think that that's, and, you know, it was a really complex project. And I was probably 10 years out of school. And it was amazing. I will also remember that I went on maternity leave. I had my daughter and went on maternity leave and came back from maternity leave 4 months later. And we were still in DD and the project basically hadn't progressed while I was gone, which in today's world, that would never happen, that a project like that would move so slowly. But anyway, I just share this because I think
So it's
just
probably
really,
95 or 96.
yeah, I was gonna say it was too. I think it opened in 98. But it was, but I think that's a really kind of critical part here. Now as a CEO, and our firm has become a member of the AIA's Large Firm Roundtable, which has been super fantastic and exciting. And it was a great year for us to join. I felt like I had all these peers and mentors in that group as all of us were navigating this really challenging time. And there are only 11 of us, I think it's 11, out of the plus or minus 55 to 60 member firms. But Carol Wedge, who was running that group and really kind of directing that, just recently said, you know, like she used to be the only one. So we're making progress, but it's just slow, which is really frustrating, although, you know, we're making progress. You know, I'm sure that I was invited to a lot of interviews over the years because I was a woman, and there would be this, you know, thing that like, if the client's going to be a woman, then maybe we should have a woman on the panel. And candidly, we didn't have a lot of female architects because there weren't. And I'm sure it got me to the table far more frequently than I'd like to think about. But also when I got to the table, I seized the moment and made the most of it too. So.
We saw that LPA just released a commitment to the Living Future Just program, which promotes social equity and enhancement of engagement in the workplace. It's also a wonderful way to showcase the firm's natural inclination for social justice and equity. Can you share with us how this reflects LPA's cultures, beliefs with regards to equity, diversity, and inclusion? What do you think are the most important strategic priorities for LPA over the next few years?
Well, so I'm really excited about applying for and being able to showcase our Just label. I think that we have been doing great things here at LPA for a long time, but candidly, we weren't very good at sharing that story more broadly. And the Just label does allow us to do that. It's one of the big reasons why we sought the Just label last year, is because we do value diversity, and the need to promote inclusion is foundational to who we are and how we work. Not only because we have all these disciplines under one roof, but just because we know who we are as people. You need that broad perspective to be contributing to projects and bettering our work and our perspective in that regard. So we just think it's a really great way to help us understand ourselves through the lens of social equity, or through social justice and through equity, and will now allow us to better manage what we're now measuring. So it's just as important to seek the improvement, I think, on our people side, just as we do in our work. And I think to even take it back to the beginning, Michelle, I love when we came up with the mission that we do have about changing lives by design, because I think all of us as designers really believe that every time we put pen to paper or mouse to computer, whatever, right, we're doing it to really better the projects that we're doing for our clients. But as a company, everything that we do here is about changing the lives of the people who work here through the different kinds of initiatives and programs and education and all the things that we're doing to really focus on ourselves internally that make this a really great place to work, so that we're getting really great talent, and that's because we want to continue to do really good work for our clients. So it's it really is both sides of that.
And is it an acronym? Is just an acronym or not?
Yeah, the Living Future Institute, it's that you're a just organization, just in terms of
Okay.
Yeah, so no, it's not an acronym. It's
Yes. Okay. LPA recently announced scholarships for interdisciplinary diverse candidates. With actions around diversity taking center stage in creating equitable company culture, what are your thoughts about creating returnships? Which I just learned this the other day because I had no idea what a returnship was. So women in architecture sometimes are forced to press pause or slow their career growth during early motherhood when physical responsibility rests solely on them. Equity by Design survey shows that this pause ends up skewing career growth graphs for women when compared to, I think it's gaps, for women when compared to men. How do you see your firm supporting the life choices that women and men may want to make after having children and or being a caregiver to a parent or spouse?
Well, first and foremost, and I'll be really interested to see if we have a lot of questions here, but I think it has to be about flexibility. I think it's always been about flexibility. And I think that, you know, some people are more fortunate than others in terms of what flexibility is kind of given or granted or whatever. So that is a huge part, because I think when you're at that part of your life and choosing, you know, to potentially start a family or those kinds of things because of motherhood, you know, everyone is going to be on a different journey here. I mean, Michele and I have certainly been on very different journeys. I look at all the women we graduated in, we all took very different paths and responded to it differently. So it's a very personal decision, and the pull is very different for all of us. So I think as a firm, we have to be able to look at flexibility as a really strong part of that. I don't know if you have like a follow-up question or you want to dig into that more a little bit, Michele.
No, I mean, well, I know, no, we have some other questions. So I think that we could probably, I mean, well, I mean, I guess, I mean, how did you navigate that? I mean, you know, I mean, I don't know whether you want to explain any of that, or how did you navigate the returnship? Right, returnship is basically like returning back to the same place that you had worked before, correct?
Yeah. So my initial response would be like, why would you ever leave? Right? I mean, like, why? So when I look at myself in that position, I have just a couple of interesting anecdotes that really impacted my decision. And one of those was one of our senior designers when I first started. His wife was a fashion illustrator. She left working when she had her 2 children, and when her youngest one went back to first grade full time, she went back to go into fashion illustration, and the industry had changed so much in the 8 years she was gone that kind of her niche of what she had been doing didn't exist anymore. And so a handful of us at that position were like, you know, that was like a really big moment for us. Like, what does that mean the position didn't exist? And at that time, you know, we're learning how to draw in, don't laugh, but like MicroStation, and learning, you know, to go from drawing hand to a computer. And the initial thought was like, what does that even mean? Like, what if I come back and the programs have changed, or you're drawing differently, or they changed the system and there's something that I don't know that affects my ability to continue to go further. So I'm sure somewhere back in here, I had this inclination to like, I can't afford to be left behind. So I'm going to figure out a way to keep doing both. Plus, I love my job. I love what I do. I couldn't imagine not doing it for that period of time. So I knew, even as I had my son in the beginning, that I was going to be coming back to work and making that making that happen. I remember the first project that I did, it was actually for Brea Community Center. There was a fabulous woman who was the director of community services at the time. And this is where I consider her still to this day to be kind of one of the strong mentors when I was at that part of my life, because mentorship really can come from anywhere. I learned a lot from her. And we were walking around the job site one day, and I had literally just come back from maternity leave. And she said, well, you know, Wendy, this is going to be the hardest thing you ever do. You know, I've been there. She was easily in her mid 50s at the time and on the other side of it. But she said, working and being a mom is going to be a really hard thing. And I mean, and how many men are told that when you go back to work, this is going to be a really hard thing for you to do after you've had your son, that balance is going to be there. And so, so she taught me a lot in that respect, but I think the perspective of like, why is it just harder on us, right? So I really think, you know, doing this for me has required perseverance. Certainly there are times where you really got to work hard and figure stuff out. And candidly, the other part of it is an amazing husband, a great partner, who together we've just kind of figured out how to share the responsibilities. And it was pretty early on, even in our own marriage, where he was saying, you know, you work for a great company, let's keep investing in that company and we'll figure the other stuff out. And I wouldn't be where I am today without how he contributed to very equally to sharing all the responsibilities. They didn't land on my shoulders. And for that, I'm really grateful, because it allowed me to be in the position where I am today, looking back at a really successful career, which I'm loving what I'm doing today, you know, continuing to design and lead a really great firm, and also being really proud of two phenomenal children who have both graduated from college and are working and doing really well. And so there are a lot of tough choices that have been made, but I feel so good that I can look back at all those choices with no regret. And I feel really proud of that.
Okay, thanks. And Meghna would like to just explain returnship if you don't mind.
Wendy, I think I didn't explain it nicely on my question. I apologize for that. So basically what happened was when the pandemic hit, a lot of women, even though they loved what they do at work and they would have loved to stay employed, they had to make that tough choice of either, you know, staying home and taking care of the children who were in school, or some of them were just laid off against their will. And again, here I'm generalizing, it doesn't have to be women, there were men too. And especially now that we have two-dad families as a normal thing, I shouldn't be saying mothers, that was wrong too. Yeah, but I'm talking about these people who were forced out of workforce. It was not their choice, and they had to make that choice. But eventually, when they want to come back again, there will be a lot of competition. As in, let's say a 30-year-old woman drops out of workforce today, and she wants to come back in 2 years when all this virtual schooling has figured out. Right. But that time she has a 28-year-old who has, you know, fresh experience out of college, and she knows the latest softwares. She is out there doing it. And when you as a CEO is forced to look at these two resumes and make a choice, what would you do? Would you create a returnship for somebody who deserves to be given a second chance, or would you pick somebody who's obviously a better capitalistic choice for the company?
I don't think you can.
And I think also that's probably where we kind of get into, you know, kind of the thing where women can return part-time, so they don't have this gap in skills. And I know before, you know, back when I started, that was kind of unheard of, you know, and I think now it's just much more, you know, even for both parents, right? It's kind of like part-time that we, you know, that we do work, you know, for, you know, ourselves or other people. And then, you know, when we rejoin full-time, it's an easier transition.
Yeah, and that's why I keep saying, like, it's a very personal choice. I mean, I don't think anyone would ever generalize that because you took 2 or 5 or 10 years off, right, that one person is inherently more qualified. They're going to be applying for a position where they all are qualified against those people. And if they come in with the kind of attitude and, you know, and willingness to like step into the game where they re-enter, fabulous. They have absolutely every opportunity, I think, to be successful in that position. And so, you know, I think that's makes all the sense in the world. I will have to do more investigation on the actual returnship piece in terms of what that is. I guess in terms of, you know, kind of qualifying what that means, I would just, everyone's coming from so many different places. I get that not everyone will have that opportunity to continue to always work if they started that or may make that decision to leave. But wow, if you can work for a place where you have the flexibility to figure out how to do both, why not, right? I mean, I just think that makes all the sense in the world. But that's just me.
Well, you lead one of the biggest architecture companies, and when you think like this, that positively affects a lot of women.
Yeah, I mean, there are, you know, there are hard decisions every now and then that need to be made for sure. And, you know, and we didn't do it alone. And so some people have family around. Other people, you know, you're going to network and develop the friends and the folks that like, hey, I need so-and-so's doing Wednesday's pickup or Tuesday's drop off or those kinds of things, because you develop these networks in the world that help, that, you know, we all kind of support each other in terms of what it is we need to do to get by and to make it work so that we can do something we all love and also, you know, be a part of raising a family too.
And Wendy, I was just going to say, I really love your concept of raising your hand and asking the question. You don't know until you ask. And so with leaders like you would be more than willing, I'm sure, if we're just honest and transparent with where we are in our careers and family planning. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I think it always
And I mean,
helps.
I think also, you know, it's like not to take the position that if that somebody isn't going to want to return to work, or, you know, it's like, I know I've had situations where people said, oh, I didn't ask you to do that because I thought you were going to be too busy and you've got so much going on. And I said, you know what, but you didn't ask. You know, it's like you should ask the person what their intention is. You know, it's like, just don't assume that they won't be able to do it or that they don't want to return to work or that they don't have the time or something. You know, you just, you know, you kind of have to be you know, proactive with that, with the people in your firm, and then even with the people around you, you know.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and Jamie, we had brought this up in our LPAU yesterday, but I think such a really strong component here is the notion of trust. And I think this year of COVID has taught us all about how important that is in the workplace. I mean, it's important in life, but how much it's taught us about the workplace, right? We've all had to trust each other. We've trusted the employees to go home and be able to take care of their work and get it done, and had confidence that everyone would be successful doing so. And we've all been so fortunate in the work that we do that we've been able to be successful over this last year doing it. And it will transform the way that we continue to work as we go forward. And I think just as importantly, and this gets back a little bit to that millennial question, maybe I think a little earlier, that we could dig into too. But trust has to go both ways too, just as much that I think employees, like if you're working for a good company, what the trust is that we're going to do the right thing, that when we say that we approach everything with integrity, that we're doing the best of our ability to, you know, ride out the tough times or make the hard decisions or express joy over the moments where we all can celebrate together. And that it's so important that the trust go both ways.
Oh, absolutely. I certainly think so. And here at LPA, our teams are so well connected. I think that trust absolutely has to be there, and it shows in our good work. So thank you both so much. Back to you, Michele.
Okay. So we're going to do something a little fun here. We're going to do the sliding doors. So if you hadn't taken that offer from LPA during your 4th year, what was on the table? How do you think that, you know, is there some other, you know, is there something else that you think that you might have done?
Done? No, it was always going to be architecture.
Yeah, no, I know. Like where
I have to laugh. So when I was applying to college and other things, right, and doing everything I needed to do, which back in those days we just did by ourselves, like our parents really didn't do anything to assist us.
Yeah,
My mom read my
exactly.
letter and looked at it and said, well, I don't understand, Wendy, why you haven't put in your letter to the schools that you want to be a mother one day. And I was like, well, because I'm going to be an architect, right? And like the college doesn't care that I want to be a mother. But it was actually my mother who said to me, I don't understand why you're driving 30 miles for a job when there's these two great firms that are like 2 miles away that you would do really well to work at. And of course, one of those was LPA. So my crazy mother did still a really good job, and I ended up applying at LPA and was fortunate enough to be invited in for an interview. So I probably would have just continued to go around the circuit. I didn't put any thought at the time into why I joined this firm other than that they interviewed me. I was in my 4th year of studio in college, and they invited me for an interview, and it looked like a really fun place to work. And of course, obviously it has. And I have lifelong friends here that mean so much to me, and so many projects that that has just been an honor and a privilege to work on, for sure. So I'm a really boring sliding doors person because I'm not sure what another option would have been. Short of the
Okay,
fact
that's okay. I can do my sliding doors. I can do my sliding doors thing.
Yeah, well, I do think there are many times in our life where we all have that imposter syndrome. And so there's certainly been many projects where I thought this will be the one where they're going to figure out I don't know what in the heck I'm doing, and I'm just going to go open a flower shop somewhere and do something.
Yeah, I don't think he would do a flower shop, but
all right. You know, when it's late at night and you're working, it just seems like a really lovely alternative to a deadline.
That's because you're delusional late at night, and that's why you're
Probably.
thinking you want a flower shop. My sliding doors thing is that I would have gone to Denmark in my 5th year and not my 4th year, and then just never come home. But anyway, which I think probably people didn't think I was going to come home after 4th year. So anyway, we've got lightning round questions, and we've got a like a reasonable amount of time. So take your time doing these, Wendy. Okay. So yearbook message, which I assume to be like, what was your yearbook message? Or I know that we had like a school newspaper, and when I went back to my 20th reunion, people like looked at the school newspaper and they're like, oh, you did exactly what you said you were going to do. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, wasn't that the intention? But I said, I just didn't plan on having, I didn't plan on getting married. I didn't plan on having any kids, maybe one, but I didn't even care about being married. So it's like, so that was, but I did do everything else. I moved to California. I went to architecture school. I started my own practice. So I don't live in Malibu, which is where I wanted to live and have my practice. So your yearbook message.
I'm pretty sure I just said that I was going to be an architect. So I've wanted to be an architect since I was like in kindergarten. So I'm pretty sure it said that. I do know that in my senior year, I was voted most likely to take home and meet mom, which is kind of ridiculous. But anyway, so that's about all I have for the yearbook.
Well, your husband's mother does like you. Okay, what about mentor? Which you kind of spoke to a little bit about that. We have enough time to, you can mention all of them. I think we have enough time.
Many. I think this is such an important topic because everyone's being told you need a mentor. Like find a mentor, find that life coach, someone who can really help you along the path. Well, I will tell you, coming here to LPA, I think the amazing thing about it is that because, I was the first female principal architect here at LPA for years. I mean, for forever, really, in a lot of ways. But all the men here had daughters. And I just wonder sometimes how much the fact that they all had daughters, all these amazing people who mentored me, Dan Heinfeld and Jim Kelly, and oh my gosh, I could just keep going on, Don Pender, et cetera. They all had daughters. And I just wonder how much that affected how they worked with others. But so for me, there wasn't someone in the firm that I could look to and be like, that's who I'm going to be, right? So I had tremendous mentorship from many people, still do, that are here at LPA, but I got so much mentorship from outside, from our clients. I can think of projects specifically with amazing facility directors at schools or at universities. The example I gave of Rhett Wickstead, there was a lovely woman, Lauren Livingston, who worked for Sport Management Group forever, who, God, she just inspired me. And I tried to think of everything from how she presented to how she'd have a conversation with a client that provided such wonderful models of how maybe I could kind of position myself. So I really just took the bits and pieces from people, and I would say, well, there wasn't, no one, you know, had the direct kind of mentorship of outside of LPA of mentoring me specifically, but I would say I had to glean a lot. So I gleaned a whole bunch of stuff and kind of put it in my own quiver to be able to pull out and use when I needed to. But I do feel really blessed for all the great mentors that I've had that have been a part of this company, for sure. But it's, so find it wherever you can get it, and listen and pay attention, because I think that's some of the best mentorship you can ever get. That really hard client who just drives you crazy is probably teaching you more than you ever thought about life.
Okay, we are getting some questions in the chat, but so okay, so what would you consider milestones or turning points in your career?
Milestones, turning points. Well, a milestone starting here. I mean, I like I said, it's always been about the work. So I remember my life here through the projects, right? My first built work, which was a community center out in Temecula, my first school, Sage Hill School here in Newport Beach. I remember, and the work that's really meaningful has always been about the work where the clients were really just lovely and a joy and really cared about what we're doing, which isn't every client. Some clients are just doing it because it's their job. Other clients are doing it because they love the process. And let's be honest, designing a building is the funnest thing they're ever going to probably do in their life too. So it's, you know, when all that kind of works together, I think those create really memorable moments. So, you know, milestones for me, I remember the projects that I had when I had my children. I remember my 3-year-old son getting his head stuck in a guardrail at one of the first projects that I ever had built. You know, I don't know, memorable moments, milestones.
Didn't he got his head stuck in the guardrail at the Getty too?
He fell through the guardrail at the Getty.
Yeah, luckily I was holding him. Yeah, holding him while you were pregnant with Meg and I had Kelly next to me. So yeah, good times. This is a good one. That if half of the students who are graduating from architecture school and there are still less women in leading positions, how much of that is a product of the imbalance 20 years ago from graduates of architecture school? So I'm curious, how long ago did college graduates hit that 50-50? And were there like 10? Were there 10 of us?
Yeah, I was gonna say there were, or maybe a little less than 10.
Yeah, I was in like 7 or 8, which seems to me, I don't know. I mean, it seems so weird because I think probably by the time that we were graduating, we just knew everybody so well. So maybe I didn't really notice a difference at that point. And I think there's probably less, you know, like school ends up really being kind of like the least, you know, kind of the more level playing field than maybe out in the workplace that way. But
well, I mean,
what, 75 of us that graduated?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think there were 75, and so like there were eight women, I guess, right?
So LPA today, we're 46%. 46% of the firm is female, which I think is pretty tremendous. And you'll definitely see far more women at the entry levels and fewer up in leadership. But I think our leadership now is 34% women, which is pretty tremendous, right? So we're making progress every single day. I think that's why we felt it was so important to invest in the pipeline, because we are seeing, I mean, there are like 52% of most college graduates now in our programs are female. And so it's only a matter of time until we're going to see that completely reciprocated in our firms. I think to the same end, we see LPA right now is 41% racially and ethnically diverse, which is great. But there's more work to do. And so that's why, and I think we kind of touched on it. We actually, that came out of everything that happened last year and last May and the establishment of our first EDI committee that we had here at LPA, we had sent some representatives through our professional development grant back to the Women's Summit that was in 2019, right? Which was super great. And it was like, you guys come back and tell us what it is we need to do. And they came back and they were like, we need an EDI committee. So we got that going, and we actually had our first meeting for the entire firm to share it with the firm on March 17th of last year, which of course was canceled because we were all in the midst of figuring out how to work on our computers from home. But it was pretty tremendous. By the time we actually got it established and got it going in May, we had a scholarship ready to hit the street in November. And right now we're in the midst of choosing 5 underrepresented but super great students, and we're going to give them $5,000 each for the 5 years of their whole career in school, and walk alongside them with mentorship from folks on our EDI committee, and really just try and give them the help and the support that they're going to need to be successful and actually graduate, because it's going to take a lot of that kind of effort and strength to get the pipeline to make a difference in the number of students that are entering our profession. And I say that as a graduate of Cal Poly Pomona, which is one of the most diverse universities. And I'm really proud of that, but even they will be the first to admit there's work to be done. There is a lot of work to do.
Okay, I'm trying to go through some of it. So one is, I'm an architecture student at Cal Poly Pomona, but I think we kind of and please let us know if your question wasn't answered with this. I'm an architecture student at Cal Poly Pomona. What is the best way to try and promote gender equality as someone in a low-level position at a firm or as an intern? There are times when I've raised my hand and asked the question or tried to sit at the table, and I felt that I didn't get anywhere. Do I need to find a different position at a firm that will promote my growth or try and promote change from within?
Well, I mean, sometimes I think you just got to find the right fit of a firm where they are going to, we all bring our talent and our natural gifts to our job. I think, you want to work in a firm through your strengths and understanding who you are. But I think the other part too is, as you get into this profession, in those first 10 years, you want to get a broad variety of exposure, whether it's to different market types or to understanding all the different aspects of being in a firm, and in a large firm, getting that kind of exposure. You also will have the decision whether you want to be in a big firm or a small firm, or kind of what's in between too. So I'm sorry to hear that no one kind of saw that hand raised and listened, if I'm kind of understanding the question correctly. But you can't stop trying.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes just repeating yourself louder. I mean, I've been on different boards where I'll just I'll just speak louder. Again, if people don't acknowledge me the first time. So how has the transition from a design position to a major leadership role gone?
Well, I think, I was leading our K-12 studio, but I mean, I've been a principal for probably, well over 20 years. So I was already in a leadership position in the firm. It's just that it shifted from a little bit, like I said, designing projects for clients to designing a firm and really looking at what we needed to do to influence change. And I will say, having grown up doing a lot of civic work and school work, you can't do that without listening and about building authorship of your clients, right? They need to help author what that design is going to be. And so there is a certain kind of skill set there, which I think in a lot of ways has prepared me for this position, because I certainly don't have all the answers. I'm the first one to admit, I mean, there isn't CEO training, there isn't a class that you take. I just honestly love this company and love what we're doing. But I realize that there are a lot of people, 399 other people that have really good ideas. And so what are we doing better understand what it is we need to do to create the kind of firm that people want to be a part of. That it's not well, I wish it were enough that it was just about the work, and the work is absolutely important, but it's also what are the things we're doing to give back, to and invest in, train, to, like you suggested, help people as they're coming back into the workplace, whether it's because they had kids or they had to go and take care of a sick relative, or who knows what the life circumstance throws at us, but that we're creating, we're creating a culture and a firm that does great work and has the right kind of empathy too.
So given the deadline, thanks, Wendy. The questions are like coming in fast. So given the deadline driven culture, how did you manage time throughout your career from internship to leadership? What tips do you have to prevent burnout?
We hear that a lot these days.
I think we hear the burnout question a lot, and I don't know what.
Really real, and I don't know that I've ever experienced burnout. So that must mean that there was always something that was challenging me, that excited me, that I was excited to come into work that day to tackle whatever it was that I had on my table, right? So if you're experiencing a lot of burnout, I would imagine that it's because there's some aspect about your talent or strength that's not being utilized the right way. Because if you're doing something you love, I think the burnout shouldn't. I was gonna say it shouldn't happen. I don't know if that's the right thing to say. I just think if you're doing something inspiring and that you love, you're going to figure out how to balance all the stuff that life throws you without having this sense of overwhelm, burnout, and all these things that we hear. So yeah, I wish the best to you on that one. You got to find the right place.
Okay, so what's one of the most challenging experiences you had to work with, and how did you resolve it?
So I will say that I think one of the biggest challenges that I think I've had is when you're in a room with for a presentation, and everyone's kind of gathered. Anyway, it's I'm 5'5", but when you're in a room with a whole bunch of people that are 6'2", 6'3", and they're having like the pre and post meeting conversations afterwards. I mean, literally the conversation was over my head, right? I mean, like literally it was, so is that a challenging experience? I guess I had to kind of figure out how to deal with that, because I always felt a little bit like I wasn't quite in the right spot when that would happen. But then when we'd sit down at the table and focus on the work, I'd lean in and asked for my kind of thought and opinion. But I can remember a lot of times where I just felt like, damn, I wish I was just a little taller.
I wanted to be taller than I am now, and I'm pretty tall, but I'm shrinking a little bit.
Yeah.
And then nearly half of architecture students are female, yet so few stay with architecture after graduation. Any theories? And I've got some things after you finish that I think.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I have to commend everyone who's coming out of school these days. You're doing such a phenomenal job at graduating and getting licensed. It's great. It is the best time to do it, right? You've been taking exams, you're used to studying. Just do it, take it, get it over with, and have this amazing accomplishment behind you, because life does get complicated. It gets heavy. It doesn't get easier. Like, I'm not going to suddenly know it all and the test will be easier. It's just going to get more complicated. And so, so just push in there and do it. It will be rewarding, because then you have that accomplishment behind you. I think it gives you the ability and the feeling that you can push back and ask for greater flexibility, right? You'll have the confidence that you need to say, like, no, I will work 4 days a week, or I will do this, or, I'm going to manage to get it all done, or this is what I need, because you'll have these other kind of accomplishments behind you. So I wish I knew. Michelle, I don't know if you have any insight here.
Well, I mean, I think that probably a lot of people I mean, women might drop out at a higher rate because of those pinch points that you can look at equity by design. But, also people leave architecture in droves typically during a recession. So they look for other things like, like a lot of people go into, the entertainment industry, if they're in LA because, you're getting paid way more money and, and it tends to keep going during recessions. So, there's a lot of people that look for, I mean, I personally think that architecture is just it's a good degree to have because, it's so versatile. I mean, you can literally do, it's like you can create the career that you want by, and it's always good to have a degree in architecture because you're still kind of in this design mode. I mean, you can look at a problem and come up with different solutions. And I think that those skills are, universal. Those aren't just, just for architecture, so I mean, even if you decide to go in, we know people, people that we went to school with, they went to Imagineering, I mean, and they've been in Imagineering for years. A lot of them are retiring now from Disney that were in Imagineering. So there's a lot of other skills that you can have. So I don't know whether they're all leaving, just because, of the pinch points, or whether, I'd like to see kind of what the rate of dropping out of a profession is like across the board, and then kind of see what the percentage is, of that. So
I guess my thing too is like fight through the pinch points. If this is a profession that you love, figure out a way to fight through the pinch points with the help and the assistance that you need. Go to folks in your firm if you need more flexibility. Try and have the pinch point not make you make a decision between one or the other if you really want both.
okay. So I think that's it, and we're going to okay, Meghna, do you want to start the closing statement?
Sure. Thanks,
Okay.
Wendy and Michelle.
Thank
That was
you.
a great conversation and very insightful. Wendy, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and making it an inspiring conversation. Just to close the event, wanted to share a little bit. 2020 did bring a pandemic pause and disproportionately affected careers of women and parents in all industries, but as always, AEC industry saw the biggest slip. While we focus on initiatives such as Project Pipeline to encourage young middle school and high school students to explore architecture, scholarships to support architecture students, and fellowships for emerging architects, I think as a community, we also need to focus on developing frameworks for returnships for parents and not let the pandemic create that leadership void 10 years down the lane or 5 years down the lane. If you have any ideas on how that could be done, or if you think you've been disproportionately affected, just text myself or Jamie, reach out to us, and we'll see how we can help you.
Absolutely. And we just wanted to share, Meghna and I and all, every one of us here know that the definition of EDI and what that means has evolved a lot post in 2020. And so both of our chapters, AIA Orange County and San Diego, will continue to collaborate on events like these that will hope to educate and empower our members on these issues and help them develop social justice solutions. So definitely join us in our future events. In April, we'll be sharing an event on how can architects contribute to create affordable housing. And in May, we'll be celebrating Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. And so lots of fun stuff to share. But in closure, thank you, just warm thank you so much to Wendy for sharing her inspirational story with us all. And of course, for Michele for being our amazing moderator and leading an interesting conversation tonight. Thank you both.
You guys
Thank
are
you
doing
so
great.
much for
Thank
running
you.
this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all, audience, as well, for sharing your questions. We hope you've enjoyed, and we'll also be posting this on both of our chapters' YouTube, so you can reference it later.
Great.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Guys, good night.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you.